The class as a group did identify the letter A and the sound. Looking at the worksheets that I collected, Nevaeh, Maverick, Cameron, Evan, and Haley were able to move on to the next worksheets. JC did not complete a worksheet, and I believe an instructional assistant would be useful to help him focus and work on his motor skills and how to hold a pencil. Eli, Kyle, Jalen, and Taglia struggled to focus and required reminders to stay on task. They may benefit by sitting in a small group with a volunteer to help keep them on task. The remainder of the class, which was 12 students, worked well. In part 3, the group work, I observed as I walked around each table. The class did demonstrate good social skills that I was impressed with. I enjoyed listening to students discussing letters and singing the ABC song. My analysis of the group work provided me with data for each student for letter recognition and social skills. Table 1, Mika and Wyatt had 50% were confused. Table 2 knew what X was but could not make the sound, so 50% for table 2. Table 3 worked well together. Maverick drew a letter which was not a B, so I drew a correct B which they all identified, so 50%. Table 4 drew an X and identified it correctly, but they could not make the sound, so they got 50%. Table 5 wrote their names out. Evan pointed out and identified E, and Oscar could say elephant and eraser that began with E, so that table got 100%.
Okay, can you please formulate how effective your instructional design was based on your planning and teaching as evidenced by data collected on student process and products of learning?
My instructional design was effective. I followed the planning stage. I had an introduction that stated the objective. I framed the big questions to the students. This was the names and sounds of the letters of the alphabet. The students understood that spoken sounds corresponded to letters in the pocket chart when they volunteered names and sounds to cards I held up. They understood there was a capital letter and lowercase letter. The skills I explicitly taught were recognition of letters, sounds, and upper and lowercase in 3 different ways: the pocket chart and whiteboard and Elmo, which were direct instruction, and whole class. Then the students used cooperative learning when they worked in groups. The students' social emotional goal was met. Students raised their hands, sat on the carpet, and at their desks appropriately. They were able to focus, follow direction, use an appropriate voice level, and not distract their peers. Accommodations for JC, a special needs student with autism, were met with his adapted pencil and the instructional assistant, Mrs. Lacey, helping JC hold the pencil. JC was also allowed to move around the room freely. Stephanie, the ELL student, was asked questions in the small group setting and had more time to complete her worksheet. The worksheets had pictures and the pocket chart was a visual tool. I also provided modeling during the worksheet to provide scaffolding. I used the Universal Design for Learning principles of multiple means of representation. I used an interactive pocket board, book, an Elmo and whiteboard, and magnetic letters for kinesthetic learners. I used multiple means of engagement by singing, discussion, and volunteering with the pocket chart. The visual Elmo and whiteboard and small group interactions with letter trays which students enjoyed. Students use multiple means of expression. Part 1 allows students to orally demonstrate knowledge in a question and answer formative assessment. Part 2 allows students to demonstrate their writing skills by tracing the letters A and B. This is a formative assessment. Part 3 demonstrated students' interpersonal skills and ability to demonstrate knowledge in a small group setting. This was a formative assessment. I managed the classroom by having 3 different activities to provide an engaging lesson. I used a pocket chart, index cards, an Elmo on whiteboard, worksheets, magnetic letters and trays. My assessments were formative.
So moving forward, how will you plan differently based on your knowledge of student learning characteristics, both previously known and newly discovered? And also, what additional differentiation strategies and multi-tiered levels of support will you consider?
I would not plan differently because the students were working towards the RF.K.3.A standard and their learning goal and social emotional goal. The students were vocal and social, so the interactive pocket chart with questions and answers was effective. The students' writing was of a good quality, and at this stage, using the Elmo and whiteboard and modeling the tracing helps all students to draw letters correctly. The magnetic letters and cooperative learning was effective because it got students discussing their knowledge and helping each other. This helped the special needs and ELL students.
Okay. How will you modify, extend, or incorporate new levels of presentation, expression, and engagement for each learner's group as it relates to their processes and products of learning?
I will continue to use the Universal Design for Learning principles. These are multiple means of representation, engagement, and expression. I will continue to use questioning as a strategy to engage students, assess them, and get them involved in the learning process. I will continue to model and scaffold writing for this group of learners using a visual tool, and I will continue to use cooperative learning with hands-on activities for students to enjoy and develop their interpersonal skills. This combination of different learning styles will benefit all the students in a diverse classroom to become successful at achieving their own unique learning goals at different levels and at different paces. The classroom is not rigid but fluid and dynamic.